Well, we got a little bit off of discussing attracting businesses downtown, but let's try and talk a little bit more about businesses with the Joint Economic Development District. You and Olmsted Township set this up in, I guess it was 2001, yes. But you don't have any businesses there yet. What's the problem, and how are you going to attract businesses? And I think, are we back to Mr. Blomquist now to start? I think you started last, didn't you?
Yes. Sure, go ahead.
Okay.
Okay. Joint Economic Development District, when we entered into that agreement in 2001, we knew that would take 20 years or so to really get off the ground. If you look back at the discussions then and the public comments made when that was adopted, it wasn't an instant fix, but it was a key set piece to the future vision of this town of diversifying the tax duplicate in both the falls and the township, so that we can get more of a commercial, more industrial development in there. Again, I mentioned earlier our tax duplicate is about 90% residential, and you need to make that about 74 or 76% residential and redevelop your other lands. That's 300 acres, give or take, in Olmsted Township. The problem is a lot of that land has been unimproved. No water line, except on one access on Cook Road with no availabilities for taps there. But the county now is doing an overpass on Stearns Road. That's coming up, and within that, as that project was coming through Northeast Area-Wide Coordinating Agency, of which I was a board member at the time, we worked with the township trustees to get a 15-inch sewer line put up there. We bring the sewer, bring the water to that area, it'll start to develop. And again, we'll begin to see businesses locate there and start to offset the cost of the residential duplicate for the property taxpayer.
All right. Mr. Lynn?
My opinion differs, obviously. I think that the JED and the entire concept of the JED is flawed at this point. You have a viable industrial parkway in North Olmsted.
I think it's the largest undeveloped tract in Cuyahoga County.
Well, and rightfully so, because you have right now, with current economic conditions, and right on North Olmsted, you could throw a rock, you or I, Bruce, either one, could throw a rock from this industrial parkway to the freeway ramp, which this JED does not have. It doesn't have anything that resembles a freeway ramp anywhere near it. They're going to always go to the access point first, the best access point for industrial development or just to do it. That particular industrial park in North Olmsted is about 35% empty right now. There is no desire to go with the JED right now at this time, and I think that it's going to be years and years and years till it ever does anything. Secondly, this JED and the acreage within it is owned by 11 individual property owners. I believe it's 11, is it not, Linda?
I think that's
yeah, 11 individual property owners that have trouble agreeing on what time it's going to get dark or light out. Until that land is acquired in its entirety, it'll be hard to develop it to any useful means. And the foresight should have been to immediately get these landowners either to agree to this or to purchase that land and then worry about the infrastructure.
You mean to have the city and township purchase?
Correct. Okay. That would have been a correct path, I feel.
Okay.
All right, we had a joint JED meeting earlier in the summer, and the township was present, and our city planner, Mr. Smerigan, was there. And township trustee Ms. Lippis talked about how there are still homeowners within the JED that aren't even aware that they're part of the JED. And they may be, there are some very small property owners there, but there's some real issues because if you have people that aren't even aware that their property is part of that JED district, it's hard to move forward. So there's really starting from scratch. The way that, and I've had some questions about the JED because there's been absolutely no movement with the JED since I've moved to the Falls myself. Mr. Smerigan explained it to me, I think, earlier this summer so that I can accept the JED and its value. And he said that we are looking at a 20-year period of time out. You know, so we could be looking at 2030, 2035, where that JED could really become a viable business district. And so I have to stop and think, because I am a mother and I have a 17-year-old, And so, okay, so the JED isn't viable right now, but I think everybody in the community has an inherent interest in bringing things for their children and providing for the future. And the JED is that far out, I believe.
Okay, Mr. Miller.
Now, I wasn't on council when the JED was initially discussed and implemented, so this is something that I don't have nearly the breadth of knowledge that my colleagues up here around the table do. But historically, Olmsted Falls, and that's not this administration, that's not the previous administration, that's just historical. Probably both administrations has been seen as not as conducive to business as some of the other areas around the community. I think that has to change. I think that has to change within the council to be able to start at first. As I said, talking to the residents, they feel like they're not being represented, and I feel like a lot of the businesses feel that they would have better opportunities to go to different cities, different municipalities to be able to start their business or expand their business, as opposed to trying to get through what's been a dysfunctional council.